was the mid to late 80s, and my best friend Randy had been sick for quite a while. It was clear he was dying. We had lived together in Louisville, we'd lived together in Chicago, we'd lived together in San Francisco. We're always best friends, never lovers. But he stayed in San Francisco, I moved to Boston. So we had a coast-to-coast friendship at that point. And he was living out there with his boyfriend at the time, but his boyfriend clearly was not capable of taking care of Randy in his advanced stages of AIDS. So I flew out to the West Coast to help him wrap things up and to essentially take him back home to Louisville to die. And this was what so many gay people faced at the time. So we set Warren up in a new apartment, got him all situated, moved all of Randy's things in there, and then Randy and I set off for Louisville. As we waited to board, I made a tactical error. We should have boarded first, but because he was moving so slowly at that point, we waited till the end. As we boarded the flight, the first thing that registered to me was the horrified look on the flight attendants' faces. You know, this was San Francisco in the late 80s. Clearly Randy didn't have one of the acceptable diseases like cancer, leukemia. He had AIDS. There was no question about it. And it was a time when people still really didn't understand the disease or how it was spread, and so we turned to go down the aisle, and it seemed like every face on that plane was watching us. When we got to our aisle, our row, the gentleman in the aisle seat got up and made way for us to sit down. I quickly grabbed his barf bag and put it in my pocket because I didn't want to make sure I was prepared. And I needn't have worried he didn't return. He found someplace else to sit on the plane. I remember looking at Randy sitting in his window seat, you know, all hunched over, and this was a man who was 4 years my junior, who at this point looked 40 years my senior. This shriveled little old man sitting next to me, I could hardly believe was my friend Randy. Got him to Louisville, and he went right in the hospital with pneumocystis. And usually when that happened, when you were that far advanced with pneumocystis, it's the end. So his family, he had a wonderfully supportive family, terrific people, and we were all in the hospital room constantly with him. And I remember sitting at his side and you know, looking into his eyes and wondering just how many minutes were left. And he was looking at me, and a tear escaped out of his eye, and I wiped it off with my finger, and then I looked down at my finger and remembered that I had a paper cut on that same finger. And the thought, you know, that, oh my God, could I contract HIV from a tear from my best friend's eye? And it was like this horrible treasonous thought, and yet I do remember like wiping it off on my pants leg and then feeling much smaller for the action of doing that. He was days from dying, and then all of a sudden, as happened with this disease, he suddenly started getting better. And he was responding to whatever treatment they were giving him. Pneumocystis went away. He started getting better. He started getting stronger. I went back to Boston. He stayed with his parents. He was getting better and better and better. And at the same point, Warren, out in San Francisco, his boyfriend that we had set up in the apartment, was diagnosed with AIDS. So Randy picks up and moves back to San Francisco to take care of Warren this time. And Warren wasn't the fighter that Randy was, and Warren went downhill really fast. And so Randy moved into the apartment that we had rented for Warren, and all of Randy's things were in there. And during their relationship, Randy had asked many times about his family, and he said, I have nothing to do with my family. He said they're Bible-thumping Christians from Southern California, and that's all Randy knew about them. Well, unfortunately, when Warren took a turn for the worse in the hospital had next of kin information and phoned the parents in Southern California who didn't even know their son was gay, that he was dying of AIDS. So a mother and sister came up from Southern California. didn't want to even know that Randy existed, but they moved into the apartment with Randy, and one day when he was out, they locked him out. They had the locks changed and locked him out of his own apartment that he had rented for Warren, full of all of his own things. To make matters worse, one day when Randy was there, like I said, you never knew whether death was imminent or whether someone was going to bounce back, and he left Warren one evening when he was still alive and well as could be expected, and Warren died that night. They notified the parents. The parents came, or the mother and sister came for the body, loaded up a U-Haul with all of Randy's belongings, and disappeared into Southern California and left Randy with AIDS, with a dead and vanished lover, and homeless. And I think sometimes, when I think I have a problem, I think back to that time for Randy and the strength and fortitude that it took for him. And I remember being in Boston when all this happened. There was nothing I could do for him. But a friend took him in, and he he stayed out in California and continued to do okay. But we talk on the phone every day, and I remember talking to him, and he said, "I don't know what to do with my life. I'm feeling better. I don't know if I'm going to live. I don't know if I'm going to die." And I said, "This is Sunday night. What do you usually do with your Sunday nights?" I knew the answer to this. And he said, "Well, Warren and I would always go to the beer bus to the Eagle." I said, "Go to the beer bus to the Eagle. Do something normal." He said, "Okay." He said, "I'm going to go to the Eagle, and I'm going to wear my white Oxford cloth shirt and jeans and penny loafers, because that was his favorite outfit, and Warren would never have let him wear that to the Eagle." He went to the Eagle, and he's standing out in the patio area outside among all that leather and jeans, and across a crowded space, he sees a man in a white Oxford cloth shirt, jeans, and penny loafers. And there's this instant attraction. His name was Art. He went home with Art and spent the rest of his life with Art until he died, and then Art died 2 years later. But it was an incredibly cruel story that, apart from dying, had a very happy ending, because he was loved and cared for the last 2 years of his life by a man who absolutely adored him, who he absolutely adored.